I assume saw the whole undergraduate or graduate orientation in the other building. Is that true? Anybody here who missed the graduate orientation and you said? No, good. So the graduate school has certain rules and requirements, and there are additional rules and requirements for the MPA program. Put another way, each graduate program runs slightly differently. And so we follow, we have one set of rules and requirements. Another graduate school may have other requirements. And so the purpose of today's orientation is to talk to you about the specific requirements that we have and to reinforce some of the things that we think will be important to you as graduate students. The first thing I'd like to say is that you are now collectively known as the 2017 Fall Cohort. So if you see an email via Public Administration Listserv and it says, attention, 2017 Fall Cohort, that is you that I'm talking to. We have lots and lots of MPA graduate students and people who have graduated on that listserv. And so there will be lots of information coming across the listserv that you should pay attention to. But if I say 2017 Fall Cohort, that's you that I'm talking to. Okay, let's go ahead and begin the orientation. Okay, so here's an overview of what we're going to talk about. Some opening comments by me. By the way, I'm Joe West, the program director. I think everybody knows that. We'll do some professor introductions. We'll let you meet a couple of professors. And by the way, other professors were supposed to be here, but they let us out about 45 minutes earlier than I expected, earlier than they ever have. So we may have some professors wandering in. And if we do, I'll introduce them to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. We're going to talk about why a cohort approach is important to us. And by cohort, I mean why collectively I treat you as a group rather than a bunch of individuals. We're going to talk about some suggestions that will help you be successful in our program. We're going to talk a little bit about the Writing Center. I promise you, some of you will see comments from professors that recommend that you go to the Writing Center and seek help. It is a very important resource for those of you who may not have written documents in a long time or papers in a long time. We're going to talk about plagiarism. How many of you know what plagiarism is kind of generically? I have some idea. So it turns out that plagiarism is a fairly complex structure. There are many forms of plagiarism. We're going to talk about those forms. We'll talk a little bit about advising, and then I'll open up the floor to questions and answer period so that we can address some of your questions. Okay, welcome to the Fall 2017 MPA cohort. I'd like to say that. Our expectations of you. Expect to be challenged in this course. Your first semester, you're taking at least one of the most difficult courses in this program, PAD 50/50. In your second semester, you'll be taking another challenging class, PAD 50/80, which is quantitative analysis. You should expect to be pushed. And by that I mean, to get an A on a paper means that you have to do exceptionally well. Very few of you should immediately get A's on your first paper in your first class. Somebody explain why it might be difficult to get an A right off the bat. Anybody? Any guesses why it might be difficult to get an A? Yes, sir.
You don't know what the instructor's expectations are?
Very good. So one of the reasons is you don't know what the professor's expectations are. I have different expectations of my class than other instructors will. Now, usually we put that in a syllabus, but sometimes you have to learn how a professor teaches. What's their teaching style? What's important to them? And I promise you, we are different. All professors are not created equally. So you'll be challenged from that perspective. Additionally, you'll be challenged because no one on this planet with an undergraduate degree should expect to be dropped into a graduate program and immediately understand everything and be able to perform exceptionally well. Okay, you shouldn't expect that. If that is the case, and if I can drop anybody into a graduate program and have them get an A, I would argue that I'm not pushing any of you the way that I should be. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about what's challenging. Expect to wonder if a graduate degree is for you. At some point, you may look at yourself and say, gosh, this is tough. Maybe this isn't for me. If I don't, or my professors don't push you to that point, I don't think that we're doing a good job. Put another way, I expect each of you to be challenged to the point that you wonder if you're capable of doing what needs to be done. One thing I promise you, you are capable. So we screened every one of you to make sure we thought you could be successful in our program. I want you to remember that we screened out students that we did not think could be successful. If you're here, we think you're capable. And we'll have a little video at the end of this. We'll talk about some of the requirements to pass through this course. Expect to be uncomfortable. How many of you are comfortable as soon as you're put into a new situation? How many of you just can be dropped into a situation and you feel right at home? Is there anybody here? Okay, so that's good because you won't be comfortable here. And again, I go back to the if you're comfortable, I'm not doing my job, and this program is not doing its job. Okay, some more comments. How many of you work more than 20 hours a week? More than 20 hours, okay. For the individuals who work more than 20 hours per week, I recommend that you only take 6 credit hours or 2 classes. And in fact, I feel about that so strongly that in order for you to take 9 credit hours, you have to get my approval. So if you attempt to sign up for 3 classes without my approval, you'll be denied. You won't be able to sign up for a 3rd class. If you want to take a 3rd class, you are going to have to convince me that you can handle a full-time job and class. And the reason I do that is because I want you to be successful. If I allow you to put yourself in a situation where you're going to fail, I am in effect taking your money. I'll take your money and let you be on your way. That's not going to happen. I care enough about every student in this room to want you to be successful. And in order to be successful with a full-time job, I think 2 classes or 6 credit hours is more than enough, at least in the beginning. Now, later in the semester, you might find that, gosh, I have gotten A's in all my classes. Unlikely, but you could. And maybe you can take 3 classes. And if that's the case, all you have to do is come ask me, okay? You can take as few as 3 credit hours. So while we have kind of a maximum of 6, or 9 if you want to punish yourself, you can always drop down to 3 credit hours. I bring this up because some students think, I have to take 6 credit hours every semester or I am not going to be successful. That is not the case. As you heard in the graduate orientation, you have 5 years to finish your degree. You can easily finish your degree in 5 years, and you can take a single class every once in a while. Now, on average, you can't take 3 credit hours, or you will not graduate in 5 years. But in general, drop back to 3 credit hours when life presents you with a lot of challenges. So sometimes jobs impinge on your school. Sometimes you have to work more. Sometimes you have to be on travel. Make it easy on yourself by feeling comfortable in taking 3 credit hours, just 1 class, okay? For your first 3.5 semesters, you're going to, in general, travel through this program as a group. You'll all be taking the same classes. So in general, you'll be taking the same classes. We start with PAD 5050 and PAD 5000. So many of you are taking both of those classes your first semester. Some provisional admits may be only taking PAD 5050. But in general, you'll take those 2 classes your first semester. Second semester, my course, PAD 5080, Quantitative Analysis, and PAD 5010. In your third semester, you should be taking PAD 5500 and PAD 5060. Now, I gave you handouts to take notes on. Make sure you circle this in red, because every semester while I'm your advisor, it's going to follow that pattern. I'm going to tell you what to take. You're going to write back or call me. We're going to talk about it, and then you're going to receive your PIN, and then you'll be able to register for class. Fourth semester, PAD 5520, and then a concentration elective. Now we're doing some revisions to class orders, so this may change slightly, but what won't change is that you will be traveling through as a group. Okay, professors. Dr. Albrecht is not here today. This is kind of Dr. Albrecht in the upper left-hand corner. I think he's been here 15 years teaching at UNCP. Dr. Barbie, we have Dr. Cooper, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Schneider, who just walked in, perfect timing, and myself. And then we have Dr. Nefsharim. Dr. Nefsharim is the chair of our department. She's sitting right here in the back. Dr. Nefsharim is the ultimate authority in this program, okay? So if you run into issues, let's say that you have problems and your professor can't solve it, and the program director, myself, can't solve it, then Dr. Nefsharim is the person that you would go to, okay? So she is the top of the hierarchy. And if you have questions that can't be answered by any of your professors, please feel free to grab her.
And just a note, most of your professors are located in this building. I am located across campus in the Oxendine Science Building. So if you go to the department website, Dr. West has that up there on the slide, so it should be on your sheet. But just note, if you need to, I'm here 5 days a week, so if you need to get in touch with me, please and you're on campus, please note I'm just across the way.
Excellent. Now, we also have an administrative assistant, Amelia Elk. How many of you have already interacted with Ms. Elk? I see a few of you have. Oftentimes, if you're dealing with a paperwork problem or if you have a question about, not about which class to take, but about issues you're running into during registration, Miss Amelia can help you with those questions. She is a wonderful resource. That said, do not use her for advice or class advice, okay? That's what your advisor is for, and we'll talk about that a little more. We also have Dr. Krill Booman, who was introduced in the graduate orientation, the assistant dean of the graduate school. He happens to be on our faculty. Nice to see you, Dr. Booman.
Thank you for having me, Dr. West.
And then we have Dr. Mark Martz, who teaches in the health administration concentration. How many of you are health administration students? I think you're going to focus on health administration. Okay, so we have 3 here. Very good. Okay, student introductions. I'd like you to introduce yourself using this format. So tell me what your name is, one thing you hope to obtain as a result of graduation from your graduate education, what your biggest fear is, and one thing that you'd like the class to know about you. So try to follow that format for me, and let's start up front.
Okay, I'm Amanda Cavanis, and one thing I hope to obtain is a method to maybe climb the career ladder in my field. One thing I'd like the class to know about me, this is my second master's program, and I'm loving the UNC system. I went to UNC Wilmington for my first, so I'm excited to be here again.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Next.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Jamesina Copening. I would like to obtain knowledge and research and the skill to be productive and successful in the career field that I want to do. I want to do legislative research.
Okay.
And I would love to be able to make a difference in my community with that same background. My biggest fear, honestly, I am nervous. Completely, like right now going into the program, I am really nervous about it. So one of my biggest fears is not living up to my own expectations, because I've set high expectations for myself thus far, but to make sure that I do obtain and stay focused to do well in the program. And one thing that I would like the class to know about me is
What do you do for a job?
I work at Walmart.
Okay.
I live in Fayetteville and I work at the neighborhood market.
Very good. Excellent. Next.
Hi, I'm Jessica Edney. I hope to find a career that's fulfilling, that lets me give back and makes a difference. My biggest fear is juggling graduate school with being a mom and working a pretty intense job. I currently work for North Carolina State University.
Do you live in?
I do not. I work for a research station near Asheville.
Oh, very good.
So, long way from home.
All right. Next.
All right. Hi, my name's Emily Oxendine.
One thing that I hope to obtain from this program is to basically use everything that I learned from this program and apply it to my current career and to move up within that position. My biggest fear, I'll be honest, is writing a paper. It's been a few years since I've written a research paper. And one thing about myself, I love UNCP. I am a graduate. And I love it so much I work here.
Very good.
You got a building named after you too? You said you got a building named after you?
Oh, yeah.
My name is Ashley Ipia. One of the things that I hope to obtain by continuing my graduate education is, like everybody else said, career progression. I would like to make social change in healthcare and the way we administer healthcare. One of my biggest fears about graduate education is I work a lot. I work about 61 hours a week. Sad face. So I feel like I'm gonna have to do a lot of time management. One thing I'd like everybody to know is I actually teach college. I teach at a community college in Fayetteville.
Neat.
Yeah.
What do you teach?
I teach pharmacology, phlebotomy, I teach healthcare administration, I teach
wow.
intro to psych, so I teach a lot of stuff.
So that's your primary profession? You're an
No.
instructor, or? No. Oh, holy smoke. So you teach in addition to a regular
Yes,
job?
into it, yes.
Okay, so I see why you might be a little concerned
I'm a
with the
little
time
concerned.
management.
But yeah, that's my life. So thank you.
My name is Laurel Tabaka. I hope, I'm a military wife, so we move every 2 to 3 years, and I find myself really underemployed every time we go to a new duty station. So I'm hoping that this graduate degree will really kind of give me a step up, you know, to find employment that will fit my education. My biggest fear, I'm gonna echo everyone, is the writing, the research papers. It has been a minute since I've been an undergrad, and I'm a little worried about that. One thing, I'm doing the online program, and I'm in Fayetteville. So if anybody wants to get together to meet and to do, you know, the cohort, I'm totally for that.
You know, that's interesting you bring it up. We're going to talk about that in the next slide. We're going to talk about how important it is that you guys make relationships with each other. Excellent, thank you. Next.
My name is Kent High. One thing I hope to obtain from getting my graduate is career progression. One of my biggest fears is I just graduated from Pembroke with my bachelor's back in May, is the papers, because every instructor, like I said earlier, everyone has a certain standard. You got to get to know your professor and know what they expect. So that's one of my biggest fears. I'm a retired veteran, United States Army and Air Force, and I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Very good, thank you.
My name's Dallas Warren, and just like everybody else here, I kind of hope to obtain a vehicle or a method for career progression or career options outside of my current career field should one day I decide that that's not what I want to do anymore. My biggest fear is probably balancing work, school. I'm one of the ones that's only taken the one class just because I was just unsure about the workload of a graduate level course with a full-time job. So I really don't have any interesting facts. I don't have a building named after me either. So
We'll have to work on that, the
Yeah.
Dallas building.
that's what I should have said about the one thing I hope to obtain is maybe a fun fact to say at future introductions.
Excellent. Next.
I'm Dallas's wife. I'm
Ah. Tell us what you're concerned about.
We'll just go to the next person.
All of it.
All right, next.
Good morning. Name is Brian Knotts. So the one thing I would like to obtain from this, so my background is logistics. I'm an active Army officer, so background's logistics. Try to correlate that with some public management, so it can help me outside my career. You know, whenever the Army decides to either get rid of me or I retire in 20 years. Biggest fear is I just haven't been in the civilian school side since 2008. Especially the writing style of it's different from how the Army writes. We believe in plagiarism when it comes to the Army. So I tried to stay away from the plagiarism in the Army, but the Army is really bad when it comes to that stuff. And then just one thing, I'm a family man. I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And fortunate for me, the Army has allowed me to step away from the Army for a few years to obtain my master's degree. So I do not have a full-time job right now, so it's
Excellent.
exciting.
And you, I assume you want to move up in the ranks a little bit?
I do. So while I'm here, I will be pending major. So I'll be
Okay,
I'll be
so you're
moving-
captain
I
now,
will be. I'm a
right?
captain right now, senior captain. So I'll be pending major in October.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank
Take
you.
that word. Next.
I'm his wife.
Another one.
My name is Kevin Fox. Something I hope to obtain would be research skills, just improving those. My biggest fear would be probably just keeping up with the coursework, making sure I have good time management. And one thing would be I got my undergrad at UNCW.
Okay, good. Next.
I'm Ashley Scott. I'm an alumni from UNCP, and I want to obtain more money. Be frank. And my biggest fear is the writing, like everybody else. A lot of times we second guess our own writing, so I'm definitely my worst critic with writing. And I'm a local. I'm from here.
Okay, excellent. Next.
Hi, my name is Tiara Jackson, and basically like everyone else, I just want to gain better knowledge so it can help go along with my undergrad. My biggest fear, I'm just nervous about the whole thing. Like, I'm just so nervous. And one thing, I feel like I'm like the youngest one in here. I'll be turning 22 next Wednesday. Well, this coming Wednesday.
Wow. Starting early. Good. Good.
Yes, sir.
Next.
My name is Mark Potts. One thing I'm looking to obtain is just a vehicle, like you said, for career progression. Biggest fear, time management. And one thing I would like the class to know about me, I'm a paramedic, been a paramedic for the last 16 years. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Next.
Alex Sotelo, career progression like everybody else. I haven't written a paper. I've graduated 17 years ago, so that's what makes me nervous. And I'm not that interesting.
All right. Next.
My name is Marquis Morrison Brown. For me, well, it's pretty much because of what I do for a living. I've been a officer for about 13 years in the Warren Police Department, and currently now I'm the training sergeant. So the biggest thing I would like to do with this program is actually do some advancements in law enforcement as far as how it relates with everything that's going on. I think it's really important. And let's see, this is my husband, Shelton Brown. He's also a patrol sergeant, same agency, and that's pretty much about it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So let's talk about.
Joe, can I ask a
Oh
question?
yes. Go ahead.
So I had one of our professors who was unable to be here today, Dr. Cooper. She asked, she's kind of interested in who might be interested in issues around nonprofit or nonprofit management. If you would just raise your hand and let me know if that would be something that was interesting to you, that would be great. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the cohort approach. I did my Master's of Business Administration in a cohort. Basically, I was entered the program with a group, actually almost the same size as your group. And I found that as I was going through the MBA program, that I built relationships with individuals, and I found that if I had questions or concerns, or I needed somebody to talk me off a ledge, like I can't do this, that I could fall back on my cohort. You are one of the largest cohorts that we've had recently. Actually, you're the largest cohort we've had in the past few years. And that's going to give you a lot of networking contacts. Now, as you mentioned, I live in Fayetteville, let's get together and do studying. That happens quite a bit. And my recommendation is, as you go through the cohort program, that you get close ties to the people who are in your cohort and lean on each other when you need it. So for example, some of you might be more comfortable with math than others. When you experience my quantitative analysis course, you're going to be face with some math, a little bit of calculus in certain areas. And so some of you may not be strong in that area, and you may need to fall back on others who are in your cohort who might get it. I understand that some students don't want to ask the professor a question because they think it may be, oh, this is a dumb question, I'm going to show what I don't know. I can't overemphasize to you how important it is. If you have a question, regardless of what you think about the question, ask it. Because if you have a question, somebody else in your class probably has that question as well. Okay? So, you can help each other learn. You can build relationships that last a lifetime. I still have relationships with my MBA cohort. We still get together, we have beers every once in a while, and obviously we lean on each other still through everyday life. The last time I checked, 10.7% of the population has master's degrees. Now that probably has changed a little bit, but probably not a whole lot. This puts you in a fairly elite crowd. And the ability that you have to network with people who are in that same elite crowd is important. Only a graduate student is likely to understand some of the issues that you face as a graduate student trying to balance in part life, a job, children, family, and school. So everybody here probably gets that, or most of your cohort members probably understand the challenges. So lean on each other. And you're part of a fairly small group. Advising for your first 3.5 semesters, you're gonna have the same advisor for your first 3.5 semesters or so. Basically, the first 3.5 semesters will take you through what we call our core requirements classes. Again, this may change slightly for this cohort, but in general, you'll move through having the same advisor. It'll be myself or Dr. Gary Anderson. Perfect timing. That was right on cue, Dr. Anderson. So everybody will either have myself or Dr. Anderson as your advisor. And because you're a new cohort and because you're moving through all the same classes, you're going to get the same advice from Dr. Anderson as you get from me on which classes to take each semester. And to go think back to that slide where I showed you the classes you'll be taking, in general, we'll follow something like that, okay? I would invite you to share your contact information with each other. I generally do not copy multiple students' email addresses so that you can see the email address of another student. I normally don't do that. So if you want to exchange email addresses or phone numbers, I would encourage you to do that today if you can. Get to know somebody so that you have start your support network here. Okay, this is coming directly from the graduate program orientation that you just went through. What's the grade for exceeds expectations? What do you got?
A.
An A. Exceeds expectations. If a professor has a document that sets their expectations, what do we call that document in education? There's a document where I tell my students my expectations. The syllabus. Exactly. Those are my expectations. If you want to exceed my expectations, what else do you need to exceed? The requirements in the syllabus. So if you just do what's required and you turn in average works, similar to what other students, you are going to get a B, right? If you want an A, you have to exceed my expectations in the class. You have to go above what might be required from the average student, okay? So keep that in mind. Don't freak out if you don't get an A. Meets expectations, what's that grade?
B.
A B. Right, so B is the graduate school C, right? B is average. A B tells you you are doing exactly what we expect. Now, C, what's a C?
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable, right? A C should be thought of as a warning flag. I got one C now. So I need to pick up my game a little bit. How many C's can you get before you're removed from the program?
2.
Okay, I heard 2 and 3. Which one is it?
Dismissed on the third.
You are dismissed on the third. So you can get 2. When you get the third, then you are automatically dismissed from the program. So if you receive a C, think, I have to pick my game up. I have to do better. Okay? And lots of students get 1 C in our program, so don't be freaked out if you happen to get a C. So failed, what's failed? What's the grade? F. Okay? What happens if you fail a course? You're dismissed, right? The very first instance of an F, you're dismissed from the program. Somebody tell me what kind of distribution this is.
Bell curve.
Was that a bell curve? What's another name for the bell curve? Normal distribution. So if we look at a normal distribution where the average grade is a C, am I talking about graduate school or undergraduate school? Undergraduate, right? Average grade is kind of a C. I'll be really impressed if people get this. What kind of curve is this? And no professors can answer.
Dissociated.
So it's not normal, for sure, because it doesn't look like that. It's like skewed left. This is a skewed left curve. And if I'd drawn it correctly, which I didn't, kind of the average or peak grade would be a B. Here it's somewhere between a B and an A. Graduate or undergraduate curve? Probably. Graduate. Exactly. One thing I'd like to emphasize with respect to grades is if you get a C or if you get a B, do not feel like you're not capable. Okay? Don't let grades freak you out because you are going to, by and large, have lots of Bs here. If you were an overly industrious undergraduate and you had to have A's in everything, you may need to rethink how you view grades here, okay? You do not, and I don't expect you, to get A's in every class. And by the way, while we're talking about A's in classes, do you think prospective employers care a whole lot about whether you got an A or a B in research methods? No. Absolutely not. In fact, there's research that suggests that students who get all A's don't integrate very well into a workforce, right? They just don't integrate well. And so there's an argument that somebody who's looking to hire you may say, oh my gosh, there's a 4.0. Is this person gonna fit, right? So don't freak out over grades. Don't worry about getting a B or a C in the class. If you get 2 C's, then you need to start worrying. One C, don't worry about it. Okay, so here I want to use a nice little picture that shows you the difference between undergraduate education and graduate education. So in undergraduate education, by and large, your instructor fed you data and you had to turn the crank or do something and spit out an answer. That's what we did in undergraduate education in general. Not always, but in general. For graduate school, it's this picture. I'm not going to feed you the question. I'm also not going to give you the answer. You're going to develop that yourself. And you're going to figure out how to make this complex system of answering or solving problems. You're going to figure out how to do that, by and large, on your own. So the hand-holding of your undergraduate days is over. In graduate school, you are motivating yourself to get through the program, to do the things that you have to do to be successful. It's completely different than undergraduate school. Try to erase what you thought about school from an undergraduate perspective. Graduate school is going to be a little different here, okay? Okay, approach to classes. Do lots of work outside of classes, right? So the majority of your work, in fact, should be outside your class. Class time is where the instructor presents information, answers any questions, and helps you, but the majority of your work will probably be outside of class. Everything counts. In the obsession of with just learning what will be on the exam, we're preparing for you for life as an administrator. Now, when you guys are administrators in some job, most of you want to get a new job as an administrator, is there going to be a professor there to ask how to solve a problem? Probably not, right? In fact, most of you will be the expert in whatever organization that you're in, especially if you're working in North Carolina. So there's not going to be somebody to ask how do I solve this problem? You have to begin to use your knowledge, what you gained in the program, and the sources of information that we are going to show you to solve problems, okay? Active learning, participation in classes. I went to graduate school part-time while working full-time, and did all of my classes in the evening for my master's degree. So it was all in the evening. I know how tired you're going to be after a long day. Sitting in class, or for many of you who are online, staring at a computer screen is probably not something that's going to come easy after a long day of work. You need to transition from being told when to solve the problem, how to do whatever it is you have to do, and manage your time and ask questions when you can. We can't possibly tell you everything you need to know about a subject. We can't do that as professors. We can give you books, we can show you where to go, we can't tell you everything. And again, communication with professors. And here I want to bring up something that's very important. If you start to struggle in a class, please approach your professor and let them know you're struggling on certain material. Don't wait until you're so far in the hole with grades that you have to drop the class before you communicate with your professor. If you run into a problem that you don't understand, or let's say something common is I don't know what their expectations, the professor's expectations are. Remember how somebody said figuring out what a professor's expectations is are important, and we all have different expectations. You need to get with your professors and figure out what they want very early on. So as soon as you start to struggle, as soon as you say, gosh, I'm not sure what I really should do here, that's when you should be talking to your professor. Please don't wait. And by the way, let's say that you do wait and you get overwhelmed and now you feel like you need to withdraw. Before you withdraw from the program, I want you to talk to me to let me have a chance at telling you what I think is best or giving you some guidance, okay? So oftentimes there are things that we can do to make life easier for you in the program that doesn't require you to withdraw from the program. So anytime you think, I've got to withdraw, this isn't working, please think, okay, I'm going to let Dr. West know, right? Give me a call. I think everybody here has my cell phone information. If you run into a problem and you feel like you need to withdraw, please contact me. Let me know. I'm here to help. That's my job, or one of my jobs anyway.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
One little thing here.
Yes.
I know a lot of you are in our online cohort. It tends to be our most popular. If reading an answer is not working for you, right? Some things are not email is great, but sometimes it just doesn't process the same as if you're talking to someone. All of our professors have office hours that they are supposed to be keeping, right? Or make an appointment with them to have a phone call or to Skype or even to drive down here and meet with them in person, okay? If start with, I know a lot of our online students, they love email. If they can't do it on email, they just don't want to do it, and that's great. But if you are struggling, sometimes it may mean you need a face-to-face, right? To say, hey, I need help with this concept. Just know, right? There are other options besides email. If it's not working for you, don't get frustrated. Pick up that telephone, right? Or say, hey, can we just set up a meeting to Skype? I really, really do encourage that.
Thanks, Dr. Nafshar. Okay, next slide. We've touched on this already. 1 hour in class is 1 to 2 hours at the undergrad level. At the graduate level, it jumps up to 3 or 4 hours. If you go through the calculations, if you're taking 2 classes, that could be up to 24 hours of outside class work. That's 3 8-hour days for you guys. So that is the expectations that we have of your work outside class. So the majority of your work will be done outside class. Many of you will be taking 6 credit hours inside, and the rest of your time will be outside of class. Needless to say, time management is going to be very important, right? Juggling all the things that you have to juggle. Full-time versus part-time. How many full-time students do we have here? 1 full-time student. So for those of you who work full-time that are essentially part-time students, as I said earlier, you can transition to 9 credit hours with my authorization. That's full-time. Most of you are like me in that you're juggling jobs and family and things while you're going to school. So most of you start part-time and stay part-time. If you feel like you need to transition from part-time to full-time, you just need to let me know. If you want to start taking 9 credit hours, you just need to let me know that that's something that you'd like to do. Okay, your advisors, so for your first 3 semesters or 3.5 semesters, it'll be Dr. Anderson and I. You'll be communicating with your advisor. And by the way, you can go to BraveWeb to figure out who your advisor is. I don't know exactly which screenshots you need to go through, but you can find your advisor on BraveWeb. How many of you already know what concentration you want to be in? Emergency management, healthcare administration? Okay, so most of you know. I would say for the first couple of semesters, or maybe even first few semesters, you don't really need to worry about what it is that you ultimately want to do, or what concentration if you haven't picked one already. You may find that you find a topic more interesting in another concentration than perhaps you thought you would like. So be open to that. If you can't come to campus to meet with your advisor, you can use WebEx. You've seen WebEx, well, you saw it up here before the screen died. You can use WebEx to have a conference call with your professor. And this, it looks like Dr. Albrecht is here. This is what you would see. You'd see your advisor, and you can talk, you can see body language. I would highly recommend that you use WebEx. It's free. While you're here, it's free. And by the way, Office 365 is also free while you're here. You can download a personal copy of Office 365, Microsoft Word, Outlook, Excel, the primary tools you'll be using here at the university for free. Please make sure you do that on your home computer, okay? So those are the kind of the generic tools that we require. Okay, 4 concentrations, public management. Dr. Albrecht on the screen is the public management advisor. This is our largest concentration. It's kind of a generalist in public administration. Emergency management is the second concentration. And Dr. Schneider in the back is the advisor for emergency management.
Think of disasters, think of me.
Dr. Schneider, how long have you been here? 30-something years?
30-something
So,
years.
to give you an idea, I've been here, I'm starting my 4th year. He's been here 7 times longer. Plus.
And I created this graduate program. So.
There you go. So he's like the god of our program here. And he's a great advisor, especially if you're emergency management, a topic he knows very well. I think Dr. Schneider is working on his 3rd book in emergency management climate. Is that correct? Book number 3? Yeah. So he is indeed an expert. Criminal justice, we have Dr. Paparosi. How many CJ students do we have here? 1, 2, 3. How many emergency management? I forgot to ask that. So 1 emergency management. Very good. So Dr. Paparosi is in the criminal justice department. He'll be your advisor if you're a CJ student. Health administration is Dr. Cooper. Now, Dr. Cooper couldn't be on today because of some issues. But if you're in healthcare administration, it will be Dr. Cooper. Please note that we expect to hire a new health administration professor beginning the fall of next year. If that happens, you'll be assigned to that professor, whoever that new professor is for health administration. New student advisors, as I said before, it's Dr. Anderson and I. Okay, advising should come from MPA faculty, not from anybody else. Remember when I said don't use Miss Amelia Elk for advising on classes? Only use your advisor. Your advisor, they actually know the system very well and can point you in the right direction. Don't use anybody else. Advising is not an email asking for your PIN. So when it's time to register, just don't send your professor an email and say, here's my PIN. Do not do that. If you want to communicate with your professor via email, the email to your professor should look something like, Dear Professor so-and-so, this semester I am planning on taking Class A and Class B. I have concerns about blah, 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 or no concerns. Can you send me my registration PIN? So you've told the professor what it is that you plan on doing, and you've asked for a PIN. Now, my recommendation is that you don't just do it via email. My recommendation is if you're an online student, use WebEx or call your professor. The reason I say that is because, yes, you can efficiently get in and register using email. What you can't do, and what your instructor can't do, is find out how you're doing in the program, right? So when my students ask me for pens, especially in their second or third semesters, I like to ask them, how are you doing? Do you have any concerns? That gets lost in an email. It just doesn't happen because we don't have time to do it. So I would discourage you from using email to get your advice on which classes to take, and I would encourage you to tell your professor, can we use WebEx? And again, it's just so simple to use. And then talk to your professor, right? Spend that time to ask questions that maybe you've wanted to ask, but you haven't, right? So use advising time wisely. There is no need to think that you have to have a plan for the entire program right now, right? So some of you may be like me in that you're organizing you like a complete list from now for the next 5 years of everything I'm gonna do, right? I even put eat breakfast on my list. So if you're a list person and you like to create lists and you want to graduate, you can, if you'd like, put a program together that says, here's how I'd like to get out in number of years, whatever N is. But you don't need to do that. And there are a couple of reasons why. First, our class orders, the order that we teach classes, are not always the same, right? We have to dynamically allocate resources. So one class that we expected to offer may not be offered, right? So there are changes that occur on our end. There are also changes that occur on your end. You're interested in a different topic now. You have some life experience that requires you to go from 6 credit hours to 3. Lots of stuff can happen. So don't feel a pressure right now to figure out how I'm going to get through this program in exactly 2.00 years or 2.5 years, okay? It's much better to take your time, learn as you go, and roll with whatever the flow happens to be with respect to classes. Career advising, and this is another example of why I think that you should WebEx with your professors and not use email. You can get career advice from your professors, and we are more than happy to talk about what may lie in store for you with respect to a career and offer career suggestions. Some of the professors here have been practicing public administrators, and all of them understand what public administration looks like today. And what the skill sets are required to be a public administrator. So use your professor for that kind of information as well, not just a pen. Okay, withdrawals. I've already touched on part of this, but let me emphasize it, please. Before you withdraw or begin to think about withdrawing or processing a withdrawal, please come see me. Let me know what's going on. Because here's what's gonna happen. If you don't do that, I'm gonna receive notification from the graduate office that you have withdrawn, because they always send me the information on the students withdraw, and then I'm gonna call you and make you talk to me, so I can understand what went wrong. Now think of this, from a program director's standpoint, I care that the reason you're withdrawing is not my program sucks, right? If there's a problem in this program, I wanna know it. If you withdraw, and don't tell me you're withdrawing, I'm going to think, who ran them off, right? What's the problem? When in fact, the problem may be you just have something going on in your life that's causing you to have to withdraw for a semester. You don't need to tell me what that something is, but if the something is I'm at odds with my professor, or I can't get along with something my professor is doing or requiring, I definitely want to know that, okay? So get in touch with me, otherwise I will get in touch with you. Online courses. How many of you are online students here? Raise your hand if you're an online student. Okay, so wow. I thought more were online students than are. Online students generally have a bit more work to do in an online class than a face-to-face class, if the only reason is because it's more difficult to communicate information in an online environment, right? It's impossible in an online environment to approach what we have here, a face-to-face environment, right? You can see me, you can watch me move around, you can hear inflections. Those things do not come across in an email, They don't come across in a discussion board post, right? And so, as humans, we rely on this body language communication. So you can tell extra information in a face-to-face environment that you can't get in online. Online is, you're more on your own than you are in a face-to-face class. So I would encourage you, if you're an online student, to consider the fact that your job is going to be a little more difficult than a face-to-face class student, okay? Become accustomed to the online environment, and if you're having problems dealing with the online environment, let your professor know. There are lots of things that we can do to help make that better for you.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I was admitted as an online student, if I wanted to take your class in person, are we allowed to do that?
You are.
Okay.
Yep, all you have to do is register.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about internships. And I want you to write this down. I want everybody to write this down. We have, you don't need to write this down, I'll tell you when. So we have an internship waiver request form and an internship document that is available in the document section of our webpage, so the public administration and political science webpage. There's a document there called waiver or information, internship information and waiver request form. If you expect to get credit for a job that you have currently or in the past to waive our internship requirement, you need to fill that form out in your first semester. We need to know early whether or not you need to do an internship. If you don't do that, you're going to get to your last semester when you're going to graduate and you're going to find out that you have to do an internship. And that's going to throw your whole schedule into disarray. Okay, so if you think you have director level, write that down, director level experience at a job, and you think you could qualify for the internship waiver, you need to fill that paperwork out your first semester. Dr. Albrecht, got a question for you. Can you hear me?
Are you hearing me?
Yep, there you go. So the internship form that we have, does it also ask what kind of internship students might like, what their field is? I don't recall, do you? Oops, can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
No, the current form that you have does not ask what kind of internships, and the reason probably for that is the form is set up only for those petitioning for an exemption, not looking for an internship.
Okay. Do you like to hear from students that know they're going to have to do an internship about what they may require?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I make the announcements that I have available through the listserv, whatever is terms of any birds in the hand that I might have immediately. I'm available to assist anybody with trying to acquire something in the area that they have or are interested in. The thing that you probably, this is what I will try to tell everybody here, because I'm the internship coordinator, is that technically all of you are required to complete an internship for your degree. The only way that you can get out of that, for lack of a better way of saying it, is to petition for an exemption, and that petition will be reviewed by a committee. It is not me. I do not make that decision. I only carry out the internships once the decision has been made. For example, if your request to be exempted is denied, I will step in. So that's one thing I will say. The other thing I will say is that I would encourage you, I will try to assist you with placing you in the area or with an organization that suits your career interests to the best of my ability. But always remember this, whether you're in emergency management, public management, health, or criminal justice, your degree is ultimately in public administration. It's not criminal justice, it's not emergency management, it's not even health administration, it's just a concentration. So that should sort of broaden the area that you can look for to meet this requirement if need be.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Albert. So,
Question,
internship.
sir.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I wasn't aware of the internship. I saw some emails concerning that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're required, what is the internship requirements?
The internship requirement is one class. It's a 3 credit hour class. And Dr. Albrecht, how many hours is the?
Essentially, okay, it's a class, but to be clear, it ultimately boils down to primarily being, I mean, right now we have it set up so that there are some, formal coursework assignments that are involved, but ultimately this is a work experience. As far as the minimum required number of hours, the department determined some time ago that number would be 225 total. The way that we arrived at that figure was to sort of assume that you were working 15 hours per week during a 15-week semester, okay? That said, we have no actual distribution requirement. By that I mean you don't have to work 15 hours per week. That's not the requirement. What we're focused on is the total. The reason we do that is to give you and or your sponsor the flexibility to schedule around any other constraints that you may have or that they may have. So the ultimate number that you need to be concerned with is 225. Now again, some of you may do 15 weeks per semester. Some of you may do 5 weeks here, maybe no hours another week, 10 hours, and that's kind of how it rolls till you get 225. The thing that you need to understand is that it is rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that it's rare that anyone completes the internship in one semester. That's just usually because of the student body that we have. Most of them are already working in some capacity and or maybe taking other classes, so it's hard to get that all done. What I'm able to do in those instances is to issue an incomplete, that is an I, which will hold you for at least one more academic semester. So for example, those that enrolled either in the summer or the spring of last term will technically have until December to be able to finish everything that you need, plus the 225 hours. Now, there will be more specific information forthcoming, but I'm assuming anybody in this room is either going to be petitioning for an exemption or probably is about a year out from even, doing an internship. Of course, we want you to complete some of your core courses and have a certain number of hours. You're not going to be doing this in your first semester. So, but you want to pay attention to the emails. I email job announcements regularly. I email internships when organizations contact me regularly. And also, if you're interested, assuming that all of you have been enrolled into the MPA program's Blackboard site, you should be able to log on there. I keep a little course tools link. It'll be on the left. It'll say Albrecht office hours, etc. I think is what it's titled right now. Click on that, look for a folder that says PAD 5340. Usually a lot of the announcements that I make are uploaded in there. Furthermore, there is what I call an orientation video that you might want to watch sometime, sooner or later, and you'll get a better feel for what it is that we have going on in terms of internship requirements. I hope I answered your question, though, with sort of telling you about the 225 hours and how we arrived at that.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Albrecht. So, to answer your question, 225 hours, generally it's spread across more than one semester. Typically, it could be spread across 2 semesters.
Do they give the criteria for what could be considered a waiver?
Sure. Director level experience.
Or the military, like, depending on what you do when you're in the military?
Okay, so if
What
you're,
my job was?
I would say if you're an 03 or 04, that you're probably director level experience. But if you're an 01 or 02, you probably are not.
Oh, so enlisted doesn't count?
You'd have to have some good enlistment experience for it to count.
Okay.
So I'm not saying it's impossible.
Oh, I
Fill
understand.
out the waiver, but in general, it's got to be director level experience. Okay?
So you have to actively be enrolled in that class to accumulate hours that count towards the internship.
The answer to that is well, Dr. West and Dr. Nesharam have been working. We are working to make some accommodations that will help you. But I mean, the best answer that I have to your question is I'm going to try to have you enrolled on average when you work, because there are some insurance regulations that we need to pay attention to and some things like that. So that's the general answer. I can work around it to a degree, and that's probably a little more than we need to get in here, but just kind of keep it in mind that as much as possible, yes, being enrolled, okay? I mean, and if you want to know, if you really want to know probably how to complete this in one term, you know, with as much sanity as you probably can. I mean, summer is usually a very good time to complete internships for obvious reasons. A lot of you are working adults and whatever. I have students who will use their vacation times and that type of stuff in order to go away and be able to do what it is that they need to do. But generally, if you're taking other classes in a traditional academic semester, it is very difficult for you to be taking care of everything you need to do in the MPA program, also working for your sponsor and completing everything that they need to do and getting that all done in one term. That's why it's, you know, it sometimes goes towards a better part of a calendar year, unless you're doing that. This summer, I had 6 interns, and I can say that I'm actually gonna have about 3 of them who will have finished up in this time, but the rest of them are gonna be carried over to probably up to December.
Can I add one more thing that was an issue that has come up in the past that may be related to what you're thinking about? If you are working a current job that has director level experience, apply for the waiver this semester. Because if you get to the point where you need an internship, there are rules at the university and the UNC system level, not our department, way above our pay grades, that do not allow what we call double dipping. Meaning, if you are a manager right now, right, at a public agency, that you think you can't use that as your internship. You can get a waiver right now in our time frame for it, but you can't down the road say, I want to take a class and get credit for the job I'm paid to do right now, okay? And that's not us, that is above our pay grade, and so please don't be someone that tries to do that, because you'll be stuck in the position of, I will send you to Dr. Albrecht to get your internship done, okay? And it won't be the job you're paid for right now.
Wait, Dr. Nesharam, Joe, Wes, aren't you requiring them to petition in this semester?
That's correct.
Yes.
All the waivers
so they
should be this
be
semester.
doing that right now.
Yep.
And you really do need to do that. And I believe the policy is if you do not petition by the end of the semester, you're just going to be required to do an internship.
Yes.
Right?
That is the policy.
Yes, that is the policy.
Plan on doing an internship if you don't fill that waiver out this semester.
And it's considered a class.
It is a class.
Credit hours, okay.
It is indeed. And one of the things that Dr. Albrecht mentioned that I'd like to emphasize is that you do not do an internship in your second semester or your third semester. We want you to have a fair number of classes under your belt so that when you do your internship, you understand some basic principles of public administration, right? So don't even think about internships until I'd say your third or fourth semester here, or at the minimum your third semester, okay? If you have questions about internships, you can write Dr. Albrecht an email, and some of you may have some complex questions, what happens here, just send it to Dr. Albrecht and he can answer your questions, okay?
Just do me a favor and please, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, but I found that 95 to 99% of the queries that I get are usually answered in that orientation video. It's about 30 minutes long, a little shy of that, but pretty thorough. And I think it'll explain some things that you might want to be looking for and also review what I did, right now. If you got a question that's not covered there, by all means, email me, but it would be much appreciated if you'd watch that first.
Yeah, and again, when you log into Blackboard or Canvas, when we switch to Canvas, when you log in, you'll see a class called Internship. That's where that video is that he's asking you to watch. And you can watch that anytime. So if you have questions, watch that. If the video doesn't answer questions, then send Dr. Albrecht an email. Okay? Any other questions about internship right now?
The last thing I would say is some of you, I can get the vibe of like, oh no, don't have that view about this, because almost every person in this room said, I'm looking for a job in this area, I'm looking for career advancement, right? I heard all of these themes, and internships can be a great way, even if that internship is not what gets you the next career, that you're networking with people that can help you get there. And I'll give you an example on the undergraduate side. For our undergraduate public administration side, I had a student this summer who did an internship for the tribe, and he was hired. Like he'll be finishing his semester, working part-time at the tribe. As soon as he graduates in December, he is full-time over there. A job that he has dreamed of and is super excited about. So do take this as it is professional development, and it is meant in a practical sense, because we all want you to have that to get that goal at the end of the day of getting that job and advancing your career.
And we expect that internship to go on your resume, quite frankly.
We expect to go on your resume, and also part of this is hopefully by the time you graduate, you're also walking away with a good recommendation from a source that's not necessarily, going to be a professor. So, and I'll give you a heads up, regardless of what concentration in or wherever you're going to do, the number one thing that I get requests for are people that can work independently, who have data analysis skills, and who can write. A lot of this is about writing.
So, writing and data analysis skills. So in PAD 5000, you're going to be doing a lot of writing. In PAD 5080, you're going to be doing quantitative analyses that are publishable level quantitative analyses. And so you'll pick up, I would say, a lot of your skills in your first semesters here, your first 4 classes, okay? So we'll give you the skills you need to be successful. What we can't do, of course, is make you motivated to get through an internship. That you're gonna have to fall on your own. All right, let's talk about the Writing Center. We have a Writing Center that can be visited on campus, or we have an online Writing Center link that allows you to interact with the Writing Center to hone your writing skills. Many of you said, writing scares me, or I'm rusty with respect to writing. I promise you this, if you are rusty enough to need help, your professor in your first semester, professors will tell you, visit the Writing Center. If they say that, go to the link. You can see the link on this presentation, or you can go just type in Writing Center in the search engine on uncp.edu. Find the Writing Center and get them to help. Generally, you can use the Writing Center, submit a draft of a paper to the Writing Center, and they will help you correct the paper. So incorrect grammar, incorrect sentence structure. They can work with you on the mechanical aspects of writing a paper. So if you see a comment from your professor that says, please visit the Writing Center, that means you need to do that. Don't try to solve the problem yourself. Just go to the Writing Center and let them help you. And that sometimes is as easy as throwing the paper over the fence and asking them to look at the paper and help you with certain aspects. Okay?
Dr. West, if I may add.
Yes.
Do you guys know how you get great at writing?
To write.
Do a lot of reading. Professional literature. I think that's probably one of the most valuable things that you can do. I can tell you, when I was going through my PhD program, we had required readings, we had recommended readings. They were like, an arm long. But you want to read as much as possible in professional journals, research manuscripts, and that will help you develop the writing skills. You'll still have to write, of course, but reading professional literature will be extremely important in learning how to write too.
That's great. And of course, you'll have lots of reading assignments in your classes.
And I would add that when you write, we want you to write as a professional.
Right.
We want you to emulate what you see in those professional journals. Indeed, if you do that, you might be surprised to learn that even you could produce something that's publishable. I had a student last semester do an excellent paper in my class, and it's being published as a 2-part installment in a major trade journal this summer. So, and that's my expectation of your writing, by the way, in every case.
Right, so the closer you can emulate a research paper, the writing in a research paper that you might read. And by the way, Wikipedia is not a research resource, so please don't try to write like Wikipedia. Actually get a peer-reviewed journal article. And if you can write like somebody wrote a peer-reviewed journal article, then you will be just fine, okay? And Kirill, thank you for that. That's great advice. Okay, plagiarism. I haven't been here a single semester where somebody didn't get booted out of the program for plagiarism. Okay? So do not plagiarize. Let's talk about the different forms of plagiarism. So there are 5 common types. Plagiarism of words, that's using somebody's exact words in a peer-reviewed paper, let's say, without citing them and without putting quotation marks around the author. So if you write something exactly or even close to the way somebody wrote it, you should cite the author. If you paraphrase it, you can cite the author. If it's a direct quote, put quotations around it and cite it, okay? Plagiarism of structure. So here, plagiarism of structure, we're using somebody else's words by doing common word substitutions, right? You get your thesaurus out and you say, oh, they use that word, let me pick another word and put it right in there, right? So you're effectively using their structure, changing some word. That's plagiarism. And we have software that detects that. So when you upload a paper, it is automatically run through plagiarism detection software. And then, of course, don't do it. Third, plagiarism of ideas. So in general, as a graduate student, a lot of the ideas that you're dealing with will not be your own. They'll be some other researcher's ideas. So if you use a concept from a researcher, let's say an instrument that has a certain structure, or a concept, public administration or a political science concept, cite it. Say, this so-and-so developed this concept. Plagiarism of authorship, turning a replication of another's work as your own. Yes, we've had people turn in whole papers written by somebody else as their own paper. And let's just say as professors we can tell, if you are writing like something that was in a peer-reviewed journal, then we are going to be suspect, right? As graduate students, you generally don't write that well, and we can tell. And the last is plagiarism of self. So you submit a paper in PAD 5080, my class, and it's a great paper, you get a good grade on it, and then you decide, with minor changes, it might fit in another class requirement in this program. Don't do that. The paper is to be used only once. You can build on the paper with a professor's approval, but you can't submit a paper again, a previously written paper or slightly modified previously written paper, and expect to get another grade on it, right? That's plagiarism. So please, stay away from plagiarism. To avoid plagiarism, don't type while you're reading an article, right? Take notes, just write notes down, and then type after. If you're typing while you're reading, you run the danger of plagiarizing. Penalty for plagiarism in my class is expulsion from the program. So you plagiarize, you get caught, you're expelled from the program. Other professors have different requirements. Some just give you an F on the assignment. But the bottom line is don't plagiarize. And if you are wondering if something is plagiarism, ask your professor, they can tell you, okay? Okay, so now we're going to watch, let me see if I can get this up.
27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. Kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure. Things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
Why did I show you that video? Don't be shy. Why did I show you the video?
Because grad school is hard.
It was hard.
Encouragement. Motivation, encouragement.
Okay.
Because I'm a teacher and I needed to hear that.
Because you couldn't find a better video.
There you go. That's right. That's right. Fine. Grit. So, throughout my life, I progressed through my education, not because I'm very talented or smart or I have a high IQ. The reason I made it through my education is because I don't give up. So I fail, I go back and I do it again, and I keep doing it again and again until I get through. I don't, at the first sign of problems, throw my hands up in the air and say, this is too hard for me. I can't do it. Let me give you an example. So in my PhD program, in my 4th year, I submitted what's called a dissertation prospectus. And my prospectus kind of says, here's what I'm going to do with my dissertation. Here's what my dissertation is going to be about. I submitted my prospectus. I had my meeting where I talked about it with my advisors. And they said, thumbs down. It took me 1 full year to recover from that. 1 full year. So I lost 1 year's worth of work on something that I was going to do for my research. 1 full year. I graduated in 5 years instead of 4. Imagine, if you will, spending a year on a project, working every day on it. Let's say it's an 80-page document, and then finding out that it wasn't adequate. I had to start back over from virtually scratch. I rolled up my sleeves and said, okay, yes, and I did it over again. You won't experience in this program anything like that. You're not going to work a year on something and have to throw it away. What you are going to do is spend 20 to 30 hours working on a paper, and then when you get it back from your professor, you're going to see red marks everywhere or lots of comments. What you can't do, well, you could, what I would recommend you not do, is don't give up. You don't have to be exceptionally talented to get through this program. It helps if you have a high IQ, but it helps more if you have grit. If you just say, I'm going to do this, and you get it done, regardless of what it requires. If you collapse at the first sign of a problem, when somebody tells you, this isn't good enough, if you want to curl into a fetal position and say, everything get away from me, I can't do this, you will not graduate. If you want to graduate, you have to be able to take the instructions that your professors give you and execute them and never, ever give up. If you do that, you will get through this program. I guarantee it. Okay, that's the end of this. We have a free lunch, but before we go off to lunch,
Can I do a commercial?
Is there any questions for me on anything?
Business Administration Building?
This is the BA building.
Because this is our classes with Dr. Snyder. Okay.
Yes, there you go.
I want want to do a commercial?
Yes, sir. This is Dr. Schneider.
First of all, forget grit. Passion. Passion. What you need. When I was listening to all of you talk about why you're here, I didn't hear passion. If this was a medical school, and you were being asked, why do you want to be a heart surgeon? And you're telling me, I want career advancement and I want to make more money, I don't want you looking at my heart. Sorry. I want somebody that's got a passion for public service. Your patient is the public interest. You've got to have a commitment that drives you. But that's aside. Grit is important, but passion will help you have grit. You really are passionate about something. If it just motivates you beyond your ability to imagine if you've never had passion. Well, I did want to talk a little bit about emergency management. How many are in that concentration? 1 or 2? Okay, that's nice. But all of you need to take a course in that field. Remember Hurricane Matthew? Did it affect your community? Yeah. Was your community prepared for it? Or did you have a lot of damage? Yeah, and is there going to be another Hurricane Matthew or worse? Yeah. That wasn't an isolated event, and they're going to keep getting worse. We know that. I mean, there's this thing called science, and we can calculate risks and vulnerabilities, and science is telling us right now, because of things like climate change, when it comes to natural disasters, they're going to get more intense. It won't cause, I mean, climate change didn't cause Matthew, but it made it worse. And that's going to happen in every community where you live and work. Every city, every county, every state. If you're out in the West Coast right now, you're going to have more of a drought, you're going to have more wildfires, and your communities have to be prepared for that. And guess what? Whatever your job, city manager, county manager, first responder, public health, economic development officer, whatever your job, you're going to have to understand those risks and vulnerabilities and factor them into the plans you make, factor them into the work you do, and factor it into the serving the people you serve. So I think, and this is me on my pedestal, but I think it's critically important for everybody who has a passion for public management to take at least one course in emergency management, so you can begin to understand how to incorporate that kind of thinking into your work at whatever level. Even if it's working in a hospital or working as a cop on the beat, you need to factor into your thinking this concept of risk and vulnerability and what we all need to do. It's an integrated system. Emergency management is an integrated system. When the Matthews occur, okay, everybody in city government or county government has a role to play. But before they occur, there are things we need to do too, to be prepared for them. And after they have occurred, there are things we need to do to recover. And guess what? There's a lot of federal laws that cover all this too. Guess what? Did you know that there's a federal law that says you've got to prepare to rescue animals in a natural disaster? CART. Every county has to have a CART program. County Animal Response Team. Boy, everything's pulled together in emergency management. So I think you need that as an overview to sensitize you to some of the most important things you're going to deal with in any level of work you do. And again, climate change, I'll tell you, one of my books is about climate change from an emergency management perspective. I can tell you, and I'll give you the book right now, 5 things. 5 things you need to know. They're the only 5 things you need to know. 1, it's real. Climate change is happening. It's real. Yeah. 2, it's us. We're causing it. 3, the experts have proven this. They agree. The science is robust. There are no doubts in the science. There are only doubts in the minds of idiots and presidents. No doubts in the science. 4, it's bad. And it's going to get worse in every community where we live and work. And 5, there's something we can do about it. And guess what? At every level of government, the people who are going to do something about it are people in public management. So take an emergency management course.
Thank you, Dr. Schneider. And by the way, you all have electives, so all of you can take a emergency management course if you wish. That's what electives are for. Figure out. Okay, any other questions before we break for lunch? We're going to have lunch with you over in the cafeteria.
I'm just going to make a really quick plug for
Another commercial.
your school. Not really a commercial. All of you guys will have some issues that you're going to want our office to address. Know that we're very helpful. We're very responsive. You can come visit us at Lindsay Hall. You can call us. You can email us. the sooner we know that there's some sort of a problem, the more likely we are able to help you. So just like, you know, in keeping Dr. West informed, please do the same with the graduate school. Either Dean Aiken or I or one of our staff will be happy to help you.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Booman. If there are no other questions, let's go have lunch.
Do you want these now or?
Yes, I would like those.